We'll go ahead and get started with today's session then. If you can,
Sure.
are you okay? Welcome back to the table, gentlemen. Site of late 13th Age. I know, what a surprise, you weren't expecting it. In lieu of a session recap, I want to know how each character has reached level 3. I'll reference the book here. In 13th Age, you don't have to pay gold to level up, but you do have to entertain the table with a story, or at least a few lines, explaining what extraordinary experience your character had. If there is some event that happened during play, you can often interpret the situation to serve as your extraordinary experience, such as if your character had a near-death moment against a foe that seemed unbeatable. You may also invent new history and thrust it into the roleplay to explain how your character has grown. Let's start with Leon. Dark, how did Leon grow?
As the group has experienced, they have seen both sides of Leon's personality at this point. His normal, non-serious self just moving around, making jokes with even people like the Whispering Ravager. And then last time you even got to saw his more calm and thoughtful self with Father Baradian. Yeah. And during this conversation, it's made him realise something which he doesn't even himself maybe want to realise. As many of you have felt, especially the spellcasters in the group, the dark energies that twirl around him. He both enjoys the power it gives, at the same time is afraid of, is it possible to go too far? But early on in our time in Foghaven, game-wise, it was session 2. On our trip over to the warding tower, Leon got quite badly injured, which to Leon, he's been badly injured before, but it just kept reinforcing in him that these powers weren't enough. These weren't enough to keep him alive. He needed something else. And there's something else. He needed to find a way to better defend himself, regardless of the ways. Many of you may have noticed Leon at the tavern polishing a new sword, which he's gone into the process of slowly putting his own runes on. A large sword, much larger than the old one, and he's definitely seemingly more determined to keep going and get this, succeed in what we're doing here. Though you can sense, especially when he seems to try and use any of his magic, just a moment of hesitation, as he maybe doubts if he wants to use these powers much more. Maybe even throwing back his powers to a weaker state than maybe they should be at this point. Despite this, though, this lack of this hesitation has seemed to make him more, at least fierce up front. He's moving quicker and clearly with a speed that makes it quite difficult for enemies to hit him well.
Okay.
Will that suffice?
If that suffices for you, then yes. Sheep, how has Thomas grown?
Well, Thomas's development over the last days really has mostly been motivating by the fact that nothing is going the way it's supposed to. This town is still in danger, and the only real confrontation that really seemed to matter, the one against the bandit lord who was collaborating with, well, everyone it seems at this point, was a complete and utter disaster. A near-death experience unlike any other, because, well, for Thomas it was definitely one of the first ones that got as close as they were. And now it still feels like there is a confrontation still coming, multiple, and repeating that experience is not something he wants. The town is still in danger, the people are still in danger, and as oblivious and uncooperative as always. So clearly the only way for Thomas to fix this whole situation is to get, well, just more capable himself.
Okay.
And so that's what he did.
Asthma man, how has Fargus grown?
Right. So during the last day when we had some downtime, Fargus has sort of felt his powers growing, and it comes to a point where it's sort of overwhelming for him. and he goes up to his room in his tavern and starts meditating and goes into a dreamlike state, where he can sort of learn to control these new powers mentally, and so that they don't overwhelm him. And he's in this state for about 1 or 2 hours, and during that time he sort of practices his new powers and sort of learns how to use them.
Okay. Gryph, in the short time that Tempus has been with us, how has Tempus developed?
Expanding on the first time where he had the epiphany of that he's with people that he can trust for the first time, he's expanded on it. There's been times where he's found himself diving in between adversary and one of his colleagues, so he takes the hit as opposed to one of his comrades that he's been with. He's finding himself putting himself in a harm's way to save other people. He's been a survivor, a loner, someone that primarily puts himself first before others, and now he's actually delving to protect people, protect specifically, in all relativity, individuals he's only known for a few weeks. And he's felt bonded with this group. There's been situations he knows that he has been in an incredibly vulnerable state, as in the box, and yet he's been treated with respect and dignity, even in a form that he cannot express himself at all. For instance, being sat on chairs. And all of this is culminating more and more that he's developing a firm bond with the group, to the point that he finds himself doing feats of acrobatics and flexibility, daring jumps and leaps, hell, even diving through a doorway just above one of his colleagues to smite down a gnoll and smash its head against the wall, and treating it like it's no big thing, and only realizing a few days later just what he'd done, and realizing that he's not bothered by it. That it isn't a big thing, it's just something that's occurred, and he's comfortable with it. He's finding himself, he's admiring what he is becoming suddenly and unexpectedly. So he is becoming more and more comfortable with himself through unexpected means by trusting people.
Alright. Manaki, do you feel well enough to speak about Dwohurim?
Yeah, I'm well enough.
Okay.
Hurim has recently been quite a lot of times in a state of panic, or a state of despair, really. Things have not gone well. He's not been able to make them go well, and he's not been doing as well as he would have hoped or really expected himself to do. However, when he comes home, sort of the night before the big meeting, he seems a changed man. All his panic, his sort of agitation, his fear seems to be gone, as the visit he's been on has proven fruitful, and he now has much more to think on. His powers improved many folds by his benefactor's aid. He now feels he has the strength to do whatever in the world is necessary to accomplish his goals. Perhaps such power came at a price. But for now, he will certainly use it to make everything right.
Fantastic. Thank you all for sharing that. We'll move on now to a little introduction. Well, I suppose before that, relationship dice. I warned you all yesterday in the group chat that 3 PCs had unresolved 5s. Dwohurim, Leon, and Tempus triggered complications with their benefits, which didn't pop up last session. Let's see what else appears. Dark, show me your dice.
Nothing.
Okay, Sheep, show me your dice.
Another 5.
Another 5 from the Great Gold Worm. Okay. Now, we'll resolve that later on in the session. Asthma Man, show me your dice. Okay.
Woohoo!
Late in the evening, Fargus is visited after his meditations, and he's standing outside, perhaps, staring at perhaps even Melkor's state, just thinking. Fargus is visited by a surreptitious crow, landing suddenly upon the Druid's shoulder. The bird introduces itself as an emissary from the wild wood, on behalf of Ajax, seeking a meeting with Fargus regarding the undead presence within the region. The emissary offers to lead Fargus to a meeting location 3 hours travel into the forest. This offer expires in 4 days, so the 4th of Ready Reet. The emissary, who is a crow, also offers a warning. Ajax has the approval of the High Druid herself in overseeing the security of the wildwood in the area, and might have to take whatever means is given the freedom to take whatever means deemed necessary to ensure that no undead infringe upon the land.
All right.
Manaki, could you give me your relationship dice?
God.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that's how we do it. Yeah, Dwarven Dan.
The Archmage has something to say to you.
Have fun with this one.
Wish you got 2 6s there, but what can I do?
Well, in theory, though, these could all relate to the Archmage because they're a High Druid enemy.
To be fair, it was the headache holding you back, Manaki.
I mean, the
Give
5 is
yourself
still a
bit of leeway.
benefit, right?
Yeah, just come off this at some point.
Oh man, excuse me for that. Sorry for that. Okay, so well, Lord Inator, in addition to what he reveals to Dwohurim the night before, which I talked to you about yesterday, Manaki.
Yes, you did.
He will also say,
My superior, Lord Teraptus, oversees the Archmage's interests from Newport. He has demanded I attempt to resolve the possible conflict with the High Druid in an amicable fashion. To meet this goal, he has gone over my head and Ajax's to broker a meeting with the Druid in the Wildwood in 3 days' time. He pauses. However, I understand you have a personal interest in this Druid, Dwohurim. I would be willing to divulge the location and let you go in my stead, on behalf of Lord Teraptus, so long as you attempt to resolve the conflict without bloodshed.
Oh, Nod slowly and says, attempt will be... I suppose I can offer you that much.
Lord
Done.
smiles.
In addition, for this information, and as a gesture of good faith,
Lord Inator pinches the bridge of his nose.
Lord Teraptus has demanded that I find agents of the Archmage to hunt down the basilisk which escaped from our tower and is currently within the Wildwood. Such a gesture of finding it and slaying it would prove to the High Druid at the very least that we are not interested in open war. And should you find the basilisk, it might give you more leeway in handling Ajax as you see fit.
Very well then. I shall see what I can do.
And with that, Lord Inator will leave you. That was the Archmage things, and I had listed the High Druid down as a, I don't fucking know for the High Druid. If you can come up with something during this session, Manaki, let me know. I'll be thinking about it as well. Otherwise, we'll roll it into the next session.
Ajax dies of old age.
Because I had left the High Druid thing as an eventuality of triggering something from the Archmage as well, but you hit everything, and I did not have a contingency for hitting everything today. Gryph, give me your relationship dice. Okay. Okay. Same in this court as it had been in a prior session, and with what Manaki has currently. You'll have to be on the lookout for a way to expend your relationship in a beneficial way for you over the course of the session. I'll think about it as well, but as of now, I don't know how the Dwarf King would, or at least a connection with him would interject in. If you can't think of it, then that 6 will just roll over into a benefit for the next session, okay?
Okay.
Okay. With that done with, let's see here. That's a, just note down, that was a 5 for Thomas. Unresume. Okay. And then that for there. All right. The first of the month. The day is crisp and misty, and the autumn sun shines its golden light into your windows. The town is bustling with activity. Boots and wagons crushing the multi-hued leaves as people scurry about this morning. Almost everyone in Foghaven knows today is the trial of Carmilla Cabot, and the topic, along with the mob uprising, the poor harvest, and the early winter, has been discussed by people all over town. The rampant badger is no exception. In Merchant's Gab, even now, over plates of baked shellfish and roasted mutton. The trial will begin soon. This is your last chance to do something and still attend the proceedings. Is there anything in mind? And, as a tangential question, what are you bringing and wearing to the town hall?
Urim is bringing his, his usual clothes, really. His staff, his wand, pretty much everything he usually goes to some place with. He doesn't have a sort of formal attire as such. He's a wizard. Wizards are always formal. He'll also be bringing the ledger, whom he thinks he will be the best person at presenting, since he has had a lot of work with these sorts of things before.
Okay.
Yeah, Fargus also brings all his things, but he has a sort of cloth cover over his spear, so it doesn't seem as threatening.
I have an idea for the High Druid -6. What we're going to say is that there is a sympathizer among the town guard, whom Dwohurim will have met, who has an equal hatred for the High Druid, and heard Dwohurim's impassioned speech whenever the mob had threatened to gather in the town square. And this town guard, him and his buddy overseeing one of the entries into the town hall, will allow you folks to pass through with your weapons.
Sure.
Is that an acceptable use of the 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sympathizers are good to have. Friends in dark times.
All right. So that'll be the use of the 6. We'll just have Gryph's Dwarf King thing there, in which case that explains what those two are bringing. What's everyone else going to be bringing and wearing?
Well, the situation or the town itself is not a place where Thomas would want to be caught without armor or weapons, but for this occasion, just to seem less ready for war and more ready for diplomacy, he'll at least leave the outer shell of his heavy armor at home and just go with the chain shirt that can easily be hidden under more formal clothing.
Okay.
Maybe he can borrow something from Bjorni, since he doesn't really carry around a suit.
Sure, Bjorni will have something. It'll be a bit small for Thomas.
It's better than what Thomas is carrying around.
Okay.
But he will definitely go armed.
All right.
Well, is it possible Tempus is able to find a tailor in the city, specifically to get a much more formal, sort of studded leather ensemble that looks quite dapper, but of course keeps the protective system? That's what he's going to go and purchase. In between the whole where he was trying to figure out the witnesses for the court case, he wants to make sure he spends some, coinage and improve his clothing. Long sleeves and...
Let's see, such short notice. to have those qualities as well. How about we make that cost 35 gold pieces to have it ready and be that dapper and protective on such short notice?
Deal.
Okay.
Done. There we go. I'll happily spend that 35 gold pieces.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's wearing something, a nice leather ensemble, but specifically quite dapper.
Leon, in the meantime, is dressed quite different than any of you've normally seen him. He's got large basically large black and white tinted with like white stripes in certain areas and banding it. Robes which are going over his chain shirt, and his sword is just behind since he's allowed to have it with him. He doesn't have his main backpack with most of his stuff in it, but he doesn't need a whole lot other than his sword, his large cross which is still around his neck, and then the robe and armor.
Okay. All right. That answers my tangential lead off of what you folks are bringing and wearing to the town hall. Is there anything that you wish to do this morning before you attended the proceedings at the town hall?
Hurim would like to gather the others before we go anywhere.
Alright.
To have a bit of a word before we jump right into a trial.
Of course.
Because he would like to actually ask what the others have, what they plan to do to get Carmilla Cabot free. If there's any sort of procedure or plan of action, or who's even gonna say what.
Well, Fargus will say that he really doesn't know much about how these things work, and he has done what he could to rally support amongst the townsfolk, and he will certainly speak for Carmilla and what she has done for the town while he has been here. But he is not sure how much help he will be.
Well, Thomas will tell you that he will certainly try to do his best to make sure that the what do they call, the council members and whoever gets to vote on Camilla's new status see that she's really needed. In a meaning that he intends to nudge their wisdom in a way. But he says that in a tone that really suggests that he has very little to actually contribute, and just hopes that they see the reasoning, or that they see reason and don't mess up in a time like this when it's 3 days until the Druid is supposed to attack. Thomas would suggest that it's probably a good idea that if we talk, that we make sure that everyone knows that a split council, a split city, in a time like this is probably the worst thing that can happen to the town.
And yet you would split it more with our allegations.
But we also don't need the populace disliking the council, which is the possible outcome of this.
You do have a point, Hurim, but I do feel like we need Carmilla. A gut feeling, if you will. But if we cannot convince the council, then we'll have to we'll have to use what we have.
We'll find alternate means.
Chances are we are going to have to do it ourselves again anyways.
Probably.
But perhaps after we fix this whole mess, if Carmilla is still really in prison, maybe our word might have more sway on the council. Who knows? I do have to say I'm not too optimistic about this whole trial.
Yes. And if Carmilla is not freed, that would certainly put the Melkors on her position once again.
As head senator.
Yes.
About that,
Yeah.
I have learned of a meeting with Ajax in the forest. I believe we might have a chance to take him out once and for all.
What did you learn of this meeting?
A meeting is going to be held between the mages of the Archmage and Ajax, where we will discuss the terms of his state and his actions.
Right. I was also invited recently to a meeting with him, so discussing the undead threat in the area.
Yes, I believe we took care of that.
Well, I wouldn't say we did. The overall threat still remains, I think.
Regardless, if we can remove Ajax, we have cut the head off as a snake, and the problem should then begin to disappear.
I don't know. He will just be replaced with someone else, and then this whole thing would probably start over in a couple of years.
Someone else we can talk to. I'd be glad with someone else. You have shown that druids can be reasonable, even though if before did not think so. If someone else more like you would be assigned to the area, then this whole thing would never come up. Someone not as aggressive, not as intent on destruction.
But we will start our relationship with Ajax's replacement by having killed one of the druids. That's not a good start.
I also have a solution for that. The Archmage has offered High Druid to no matter what happens with Ajax, to take care of the basilisk that escaped into the forest, to show that he intends to quell any and all threats to peace, be it Ajax or another monster.
Why do I take the guess that we are the going to be the ones sent?
Says, yes, that is indeed true. We are the ones who are going to be doing this. But this can be used to make peace or amend whatever damage that might be made in the relationship between the two icons.
Well, it's certainly a good thing to have multiple options, but I would prefer a diplomatic solution to this problem.
We will attempt.
Yes.
But I'm not very hopeful.
I will say, if something starts with the druids, we may have more than one problem to deal with. I know I've had a look at some of Celia's records of the people and how fiercely she's been defending the town throughout her long reign. She may have problems with us if we cause something to go worse. Just to keep in mind.
Of course.
Yes.
We don't want to.
From what I have seen into her dealings, she does seem to care a lot about the city. I do not think we were correct in our prior assumptions.
I've looked into it. She had no reason to found the town. She did give the land out for free to charity. She did so.
If she wanted a war between the High Druid and the Archmage, she had the opportunities many times in the past.
That would also be true.
Well, perhaps the time wasn't right. And also she did hire the Whispering Ravager to sort of terrorize the area. And
she did.
Well,
the Ravager never said her name. He simply said she. I am honestly more inclined for it to be Bree, looking to take care of Celia through, well, the means of us, to perhaps take over as the head. She has lived in the shadow.
I don't think he would be terrified of Bree.
And why would Bree ask us to take care of the undead problem in their cellar? That doesn't make sense.
Because it is Ocilia's undead and Ocilia's research.
If that would be the case, then does Bree fully know about what's going on with us?
I think she does. Regardless, we don't have enough information to conclude one way or another. Taking care of Ajax will be the first immediate issue. Then we can come back and deal with whatever's left.
Yes. Well, we don't have a countdown clock ending in, what is that, 2 days?
Yes. This needs to be taken care of right after this court.
Now, I believe Tempus, you are very good with words. I will present the dry facts of the shown in the ledger. However, I might need you to win them over.
If you can issue the facts first, I'll see what I can do to, at the very least, either confuse them or rile them up into a frenzy in support.
Why not both at once?
Oh, at the very least, I will aim to try,
I don't
work
think
them
we
under
should
support.
speak down too much to the citizens. They are all quite smart people.
I would recommend one possible option is, of course, stroking their egos.
Yes.
It is a
Some way.
Say
Speak
depress-
honest to them. We know we talk for the truth. I don't. All we need to do is convince them that it is indeed the truth.